sex, racism, eating. What do these things all have in common? They're all biological drives, often called animal instincts, which occupy and motivate living creatures, including humans. But humans are not just any kind of animal. Some say we're molded in the image of our Creator. Others say we evolved under uniquely selective circumstances. But everyone agrees that humans are special, precisely because we are able to transmute our biological urges into something entirely different, into something rational or even spiritual. Let's take a look at the aforementioned biological drives in order to see what spiritual transmutation looks like. So first is sex. Sex feels good. We want to have sex, probably even lots of sex. Most of us, however, are wise enough to know that too much sex, too early in life or too early in a relationship, is ultimately bad for us. Furthermore, we are choosy about who we will have sex with. All of these modest considerations fall under the category of chastity, which could even involve the complete abstinence from sex or masturbation for a period of time. #NoFap. Why do we do this? It must be because the deferral of gratification will somehow pay off in the end. But pay off how? Certainly not in terms of the quantity of sex or the variation in sexual partners. No, we are chaste because when we build a solid foundation in a romantic relationship through emotional intimacy and commitment to a partner for life, that signals to ourselves and others that we value the act of reproduction more than we value the sweet, hedonistic pleasures that we get from mere coitus. The incredible thing is, if we follow through on chastity, the sex actually improves and becomes more meaningful. Just ask any 30-year-old woman with baby rabies who slut-walked her way through her 20s and is now feeling regret. Why would we want sloppy, half-drunk one-night stands when we could perform this sacred act on our wedding night with the love of our life and many times thereafter? Spirituality, as rendered by chastity, is infused with sex and actually transmutes or changes the sex into lovemaking. Of course, babies are still conceived whether or not the love between partners is real or simply lustful. Chastity and the lack of chastity affect everyone around you, including the unborn. We also have a natural desire to eat. Like sex, eating too much or not the right kinds of foods is bad for us. Personally, I'm fond of a paleo-style diet with lots of meat and little to no wheat, soy, or sugar. Whatever diet works for you, you understand that not having limits, constraints on what you consume will likely lead to obesity, slothfulness, voting Democrat, and other health risks. However, eating has a spiritual side as well. Fasting has long been a tradition within major religions because people recognize the value of training our bodies to endure hunger. Christianity in particular stresses the blessings that God grants to those who fast. The reward is more than just good health. Abundance and steadfastness are the results of transmuting our urge to eat into nourishment. Lastly, we come to racism or tribalism. In the modern liberal West, we consistently hear how awful tribalism is and how great multiculturalism is in comparison. This clearly goes against our natural biological urge. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to have the idea beaten into us with public schooling and media propaganda. The J-libertarians are quick to point out that individualism is key and collectivism is the enemy of mankind because it is the source of conflict throughout the world. This is exactly like saying sex and food are the enemy of man because they are the sources of degeneracy and obesity. It's true that some people make bad choices, but this does not mean that we all have to become celibate and go on hunger strike like Gandhi. Reserving judgment of individuals until you get to know them. In other words, not closing yourself off to new information based solely on immutable characteristics like race or gender. This principle is in fact a spiritual transmutation called empathy. However, empathy, when taken to the extreme, is exceedingly dangerous. White Westerners are currently addicted to this restraint mechanism, and it's killing us. When you fast for too long, you starve. When you forego making love to your wife for too long, your lineage dies out. And when you abandon racism in favor of empathy for too long, your culture deteriorates. You forget your identity, and you lose your will to survive. There is a way to transmute the animalistic, tribal racism into something much greater and more profound, namely sovereignty. National sovereignty means that both the in-group and the out-group have a mutual respect for each other's borders and customs, and can work together even while their populations remain separate. The problem is, white people are giving their empathy and respect to the out-group when they are not giving us the same in return. This means that the possibility for an enlightened form of racism, i.e., ethnic sovereignty, is currently not feasible. If national sovereignty fails, we may have to revert back to the animalistic racism that our enemy consistently accuses us of, if only to ensure our own survival. This has occurred a number of times in European history, and it could occur again if we are not careful. The man who is on the brink of starvation will not worry about whether the box of donuts is in accord with his low-carb diet. He will and must devour the donuts if he wants to live. And so must we swallow the red pill of racism. But we must also not get lost in it. We must remember that hatred and the destruction of our enemies will not provide us meaningful spiritual fulfillment. It can only provide us the opportunity for the transmutation of baser desires after the battle is won. This is why we cannot give up on religion, on spirituality. We cannot wallow in our empathic sensibility while we wait for the wrecking ball to strike our civilization. But we also cannot surrender it, lest we become the savages we fight. Instead, draw it inside you, guard it, and protect it for a brighter day and a more hopeful future.